Welcome back to Technical Talkout. UFC 299 has come and gone, so let's talk about it. Let's start with the main event. Going from bottom to top, we start with Petr Yan versus Song Yadong. Petr Yan had a great outing. This was a must-win fight for him. The dude was on a three-fight losing streak coming up to this. He lost for the belt against Aljo, and then Sean O'Malley beat him. Which that one, a lot of people will go back and forth. He won regardless, but Merab Dvalishvili beat him too, and so he needed to win. He did. He came out in great fashion. He put himself, I think, not back in title contention, but back into talks of him getting back into title contention. That division is wild. Outside of Cheeto now going down the ranks, I personally thought Corey Sandhagen deserved it over Cheeto. But you have Merab, who's just on a multiple fight win streak. And then you have Aljo again, which we don't know what Aljo's doing. Maybe he's going to go up to 145. Who knows? He's a big bantamweight. But either way, he's back in the picture. And he's back in the picture. And that's just something that we have to consider with, Petr Yan. He's going to be back. He looked good. He looked as good as ever. And this was, again, a must-win fight. But back to the card, taking nothing away from Song Yadong, that was a great fight. Then we move up to the welterweight. JDM looked so good on the feet. Now, he obviously had trouble with Gilbert on the ground, but who isn't going to have trouble with Gilbert on the ground? But he was smart. He played a good fight, or he played a good strategy. He had a good fight. And then that big knee off of that scramble, that's what did it. And I remember watching it going, holy shit. Like, that was just a hell of a knee. He really popped him and then finished the fight. He earned that win. That was a fun one. It's going to be exciting to see where he goes in with this. With the young breed of welterweights, we have him. We have Ian Gary. Now MVP's back in the mix. We could even throw, JDM versus Kevin Holland back in there. Either way, he's making a name for himself. He's really coming in hard. Speaking of other welterweights, like we just mentioned, MVP versus Kevin Holland. Holland had nothing for him. You can tell he tried to really just walk him down those first few rounds, that round and a half. He was thinking, I'm going to walk him down. I'm going to get him to trip up. I'm going to connect with him. And then I'm going to really just put it on him. That didn't happen. We saw MVP stick to his game plan. He absolutely outpointed him. And any lesser fighter probably would have went down with any of those shots. Props to Kevin Holland. He's stayed there for all 3 rounds, but that was a tough outing. That was a tough showing. MVP, on the other hand, made things interesting in the welterweight division. Now, not to take this away, but Kevin Holland doesn't have the best wrestling. He is not, he's a great grappler, but it's when you get him down to the ground where he figures out how to move. And he's worked so much on his defensive wrestling based off of the last few fights that I don't think he had anything offensively to really get MVP down. And we didn't get to see what MVP's real takedown defense looked like. Kevin Holland's not known as a guy who's going to get you to the ground. So we'll see. People are talking about, let's do MVP versus Wonder Boy. He already talked about it. He squashed that. Said nope. He said that would be a boring fight, which I agree. You're going to have these two guys who stylistically against other fighters do great. When they come rushing into him, when they're backing up, those two fighters do a fantastic job of maintaining distance and attacking with their point karate style. Now, them against each other might be kind of boring. And I guess Wonder Boy was kind of involved in another fight like that with what's his name? Welterweight. Damn, I cannot think of it. He's been out of the game for so long. Now we can't even think of his name. Let me look it up here. It was Darren Till. Darren Till. His fight with Darren Till was boring. If you watched it, you'd see that he was just they were both just kind of waiting and pacing, and very, very seldom strikes were thrown. And I think that's what would happen with MVP and Wonder Boy. It would just look a lot better. But either way, and MVP doesn't want to fight him. They're buddies. They like each other. So it is what it is. And as we move up the card, we get to the big fight, the fight of the night. No, I don't know if they were fight of the night, but yep, it was fight of the night. The Diamond versus Benoit Saint Denis. Like that was a good fight. But you could see from the get go, Dustin Poirier was putting hands on him when he wanted to. And Benoit Saint Denis, being a great pressure fighter, getting in there, eating some of those shots, it almost felt like Dustin knew he could win by using the hands, but he wanted to just see if he could get him on the ground. He wanted to challenge his grappling. He felt comfortable enough to let Benoit kind of dictate that pace and get him on the ground. And to his credit, Dustin got out of some really bad situations. But that just shows experience and confidence. But it's like he knew he could win that fight with the hands. He's like, okay, like I'm gonna hold off on knocking him out because I want to see if I could maybe beat him in the grappling. He wanted to test that, and that's what I think happened. Is he really went after it with the grappling? He jumped the gilly so many times, and like he always says, "Don't be silly, jump that gilly." And he said he'll never stop. And I was really hoping he was gonna get it. And then I think about his other fights where he did it, where it just never worked out. Dan Hooker was another one. Then you had, obviously Khabib. He had a really deep guillotine, but he couldn't finish it. This one, I think they were saying Dustin's never won by guillotine, which is the craziest thing. But either way, he kept going after that guillotine. And, at some point, I think he was like, all right, I'm out of here. I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to beat him in the grappling that extensively. So, boom, knocked him out. It's like he knew he could put hands on him whenever he wanted. He just didn't want to. He wanted to see what else he could do with that fight. And, when he hit Benoit, it just was a world of difference. Like you could see almost every punch Benoit was like, holy shit, that was big. And that could be due to his striking and defense, or that just could be Dustin's power. Either way, like I like to believe it's Dustin's power. We've seen him crack people. And, to Benoit's credit, he took a few of those shots, but he took those shots. He ate them. He shouldn't have been. He should be working on his practice. I mean, like, he should be working on his defense. Letting Dustin tee off on you like that probably wasn't part of the game plan, but they thought they could probably get in there, get him down, and finish him. But that wasn't the plan. Dustin just showing that he'll never lose two in a row. He's just an absolute monster. And does this put him back into title contention? His last loss was against Gaethje. Gaethje's next fight is against Holloway, which I don't like that fight. I don't like that fight at all. It's a fun fight. I'm glad I'm seeing it, but I'm upset that it exists because now this puts a weird place on the division. Gaethje, honestly, should be looking up there as a title shot. And Holloway, he's only ever lost to Volkanovski, and Volkanovski is no longer on that throne. And it almost feels like when they created that BMF fight with Gaethje and Holloway, it's like they were worried. I mean, about matching. Not saying they were worried, but it felt like maybe they were trying to avoid matching Max with Ilya, because who knows what could have happened had that fight happened. And just for devil's advocate's sake, had Max won, well, then that derails Ilya, and then who's going to fight Alex? And that's then another thing, is they wanted to get that division moving. We've seen it 3 times, 2 times people believe Max won, but that final time really cemented that Max cannot beat Alex. But with that said, they didn't want anyone, styles make fights, and maybe Ilya would have ran through Max and then did the same thing he did to Alex regardless, but I don't think the UFC wanted to take that chance, which is why they're putting him up there. I mean, Max has done that to as a champ or as a contender, he's done it to every fighter. He's knocked them off their rails. I mean, whether it was Calvin Kattar, Arnold Allen, Yair, he's stopped all these hype trains, and there was a real risk that he stops Ilya's too, which they wouldn't be able to give Ilya a title shot after losing to Max. So that's why I think they created this BMF belt. But regardless, back to the lightweight picture, we have Dustin Poirier sitting up there again. Mateusz Gamrot was also on this card. He won via decision over RDA. It's, that's a good win to have on your resume, but it doesn't mean much in the title picture. Benoit Saint Denis, I don't think was in the top 10, so he was never in the contention. And you have Armin and Oliveira, I believe, are going at it. So Islam is open. Islam is free. I mean, his last fight, he knocked out Alex, so he didn't take a whole lot of damage. And I, the picture is kind of weird. You have Dustin, who's available now. He can fight in June, like Ali Abdelaziz said. And then you have Gaethje, who's tied up in a fight. You have Armin and Charles Oliveira, who are tied up in fights. Gamrot, who's not earned a title shot. I mean, Dariush is out. He's fallen down the ladder. There's really not much left in the UFC lightweight picture. I mean, we have Rafael Fiziev, who's, I think, coming off of a lot. No, he's coming off of the loss, but I don't think it was a good loss. It was like an injury. Yeah, he's coming off of a 2-loss skid. The first one against Gaethje, and then the loss against Gamrot, but that was an injury. We don't know what would have happened. So it's a strange division, but it's exciting. But this could be the shot that Dustin needed to get a title, and maybe setting up all those other fights was how the UFC got Dustin that title shot against Islam. I mean, he's free, Dustin's free. Everyone else is kind of tied up at the moment between now and June. So unless something falls out, that's what we have. And we move into the bantamweight. Sean O'Malley and Cheeto. Cheeto's been known to give up that first round. Like, he just feels people out. He doesn't want to go crazy. And he never really is like a crazy killer in the first round. But Sean O'Malley never gave him the space to get off in the rounds 2, 3, 4, 5. And you could see that in rounds 4 and 5, he was getting desperate. He was looking for a slugfest. And, in that last exchange of the fight, he ended up like hammering O'Malley with a body shot, and it was perfect. And he sat O'Malley down, but it's like a Nate Diaz thing. Like, they don't lose, they just run out of time. And that's unfortunate. I think what happened with Cheeto is, people joke and like, had this fight gone on another round, but he had 25 minutes. He had 5 rounds. We're not getting rounds 6, 7, and 8. Sure, maybe if he had rounds 6, 7, and 8, he might have been able to get O'Malley. But I mean, fights are, rounds and time limits for a reason, and you have what you have to finish it. I thought it was great. It was a fantastic outing by Sean O'Malley. He did a wonderful job. 200 something plus significant strikes landed. And it was just an amazing outing. He did a fantastic job doing exactly what he needed to do. I really think that the next picture, I mean, we obviously have Merab, who the UFC is high on. Like, he just came off of his dominant win over Cejudo, where he basically Hamzat'd him. He picked him up, just ragdolled him. And Cejudo kind of had nothing for him. Now, Merab's been seen to take shots, and we saw what happened when Aljo went in for a shot, and Sean was able to time it and crack him, stop him. Does the same thing happen to Merab? I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, because the Merab's probably going to get the next shot. Like, there's no doubt. But again, we don't know what Aljo's doing. They're friends and training partners. Sandhagen, who's been quietly just on the sideline, and it kind of sucks because Sandhagen has, I believe, earned a shot. And I think it would be a great fight between Corey and Sean O'Malley. That would be a great stand-up fight. Both guys are dogs. Both guys are great strikers. Both guys are more than competent on the ground, but I don't think we'd see it. We might see it just to see if one could show the supremacy of, like, I could get you down, but we're not going to grapple. But I want to let you know I can take you down if I need to. Regardless, I'm kind of bummed that Sandhagen's been in no conversations. I mean, he beat Cheeto. He dog-walked Cheeto. And he showed that he was a better fighter than Cheeto was. But Cheeto still got the shot. I think just coming off of one win over Frankie Munoz. but the UFC wanted to create that storyline of getting that win back. Regardless, Sean O'Malley did exactly what he needed to do, and that's why he's the champ. But we need to see who's going to be fighting next. I mean, Sanhagen's available. Marab just fought. And I think the UFC would rather see Marab O'Malley than Sanhagen O'Malley next. And for example, if Sanhagen does get the next shot and beats O'Malley, then the Marab kind of doesn't work as well. Marab O'Malley or Marab Sanhagen isn't as great of a sell. There's no drama there. I mean, Sanhagen, for all this amazing credit in the octagon, isn't a great shit talker. He's not a big seller of fights, and that's not a knock. That's just some people have that, and it makes it worth it. But you know, he let his fist do the talking, and that's why I believe he should be the next in line for the title shot. Marab's got this great win streak, but I mean, his fights, like who he's beaten, he beat Piotr Jan, and then he beat, I think, Aldo. I'm trying to think of who else was a victim of the Marab train. I mean, yeah, his last outside of Cejudo, Jan was his biggest win, and then before that, Aldo was another good win. But then it kind of just, Marlon Moraes. Marlon Moraes hasn't been Marlon Moraes for a long time. Marlon Moraes, when he fought Marab, was on already a 2-fight win streak. He was one of four by the time he fought Marab. And again, even after that, you can see his career just hasn't been the same. But I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's a great win streak, but it doesn't have, like, on paper, I just, Sanhagen's got the better record. He's got the more, I mean, he's on a 3-fight win streak, Song Yadong, Vera, and then Rob Font. And he hasn't fought since August. He is ready. He is fresh. And I know O'Malley's going to need some time because that was a 5-round burner, but I think that's where they go next. And, if they want to put O'Malley on sidelines, maybe what they would do is just create a title eliminator between Marab and Sanhagen. It doesn't sell, but it rises the stock of the winner. Just that much more for, like, when they fight Sanhagen. Or, I'm sorry, when they fight O'Malley. So that was UFC 299 main card overview. I think it wasn't the biggest excitement in terms of, like, fight card, but it was enough. It was good enough, and it set records in Miami in terms of a gate. I thought it was a great card. It was a great card. I would just wish it had a stronger main event, or all the fights on it were great, but I just wish it had a bigger main event. Maybe I just don't see how much of a draw O'Malley is, but he proved it. And after that performance, he shut down all the haters. I truly believe that first fight was a fluke. No, taking nothing away from Cheeto, but I think it would have been a different fight had O'Malley not hurt his leg. And I'm sorry, had Cheeto not hurt his leg. Cheeto got him. And that caused that. Now, it's not just like O'Malley tripped on himself. He didn't, like, Tony Ferguson himself and trip in the back wearing sunglasses inside, But it's exciting to see where we're going to be going with this division. And I feel like the UFC is starting to gain momentum again. I feel like it's starting to get exciting in the divisions. I felt like for a bit, lightweight was the only strong division. I take that back. 135, 45, and 55 were the only strong divisions. 70 was getting stale. 85 just feels bland. And 205 feels bland. I personally don't think 85 and 205 are strong, even heavyweight. But I do feel like we're starting to get more with 170 now. We're seeing more contenders rising up and defeating the old guard, which is nice to see. We want to see that. But yeah, I'm excited. UFC 300 is next. This has been Technical Talk Out. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.